My son begged me to co-sign a $340,000 business loan. 3 months later, he blocked my number. The restaurant was still half finished, and the bank called me before he did. I'm Walt, 64. I own a machining shop outside Spokane. My wife Carol and I raised 2 kids in the house we paid off in 2019. My daughter Renee, an ER nurse, had never asked me for money. My son Brad, 33, had spent his adult life working restaurants. He was charming and always almost there. Then Brad came to our kitchen table with his business partner, Colton. They had plans for a downtown restaurant. Budgets, floor plans, equipment lists. They needed me to guarantee the loan. You're not writing a check, Brad said. You're just believing in me on paper. Later, Carol said, I don't trust Colton. He looks at you like he already spent your money. Renee texted me the same warning the next day. I signed anyway. For 2 months, everything looked fine. Brad sent construction photos and called every Sunday to talk numbers. Then the calls stopped. One Sunday passed, then another. My text got, busy week, Dad. Talk soon. Then the bank mailed me a notice saying the account had missed a required reconciliation. I called Brad 9 times in 4 days. Voicemail. On the 10th call, one tone. Disconnect. He had blocked me. The next morning, I drove to the restaurant. Paper still covered the windows. A padlock hung on the door. The dumpster looked untouched. 3 days later, the loan officer called. You need to come in. There are things you should see before you make any decisions. In the same room where I had signed, she slid a thick folder across the table. The loan had released about $210,000. The restaurant had maybe $40,000 worth of real work in it. One vendor, Vance Build Group, was controlled by Colton. Loan money was being sent there for construction consulting. Then the fraud officer turned to the worst pages. Brad's signature was on 8 draw requests, my son's handwriting. 8 times. The bank had frozen the remaining $130,000. That was the only reason it wasn't all gone. I went home and told Carol everything. She didn't say I told you so. She didn't have to. That night I requested the full loan file and sat at our kitchen table reading every email and invoice. Near 1 a.m., I found an email Brad had sent Colton weeks earlier. He had noticed the invoices didn't match the work and demanded an explanation. Colton told him it was a timing issue and warned him not to call the bank because he would kill the project. So Brad had seen it, but he had still signed, and he had still disappeared. 2 days later, an old friend helped me find him working overnight at a diner under a shortened version of his name. When I walked in, Brad was behind the grill. He looked 30 pounds lighter. He saw me and went pale. We stood outside near the dumpsters. He started crying before I said anything. He told me he confronted Colton in June. Colton threatened to say Brad had approved everything knowingly. Brad panicked. Instead of calling the bank, he convinced himself he could quietly replace the missing money before anyone found out. So he took night shifts and blocked me. I couldn't listen to your voice and lie to you, he said, and I couldn't tell you the truth. I didn't hug him. I put my hand on his shoulder. Get in the truck. He looked up. We're fixing this the right way, but you're telling me everything. No more hiding. Brad gave the bank every email and message he had. Colton had been routing money through his own company and had apparently used a similar scheme before. The legal part stayed in the background. The bank reduced my exposure to the legitimate portion, around $70,000, while recovery efforts went after Colton. Brad sold his car and worked 2 jobs. I did not pay his share for him. I helped him make a budget at the same kitchen table where he had once asked me to believe in him on paper, but every payment came from his account. Later, I called Renee over and showed her the old warning text. You saw it, I told her. I didn't want to. She said she never expected anything from me. Carol and I set money aside for the community clinic Renee had quietly dreamed about starting. Not as a reward, not as punishment for Brad, because I was finally paying attention to who had been steady when nobody was asking her to be. Brad is still my son. He was manipulated, but he also signed things he should not have signed and hid when he should have spoken. Now he is paying for that mistake himself. Ridgeline Kitchen never opened. Sometimes my phone rings while Brad and I are at the kitchen table going over his payment. I let it ring. He finishes the number in front of him first.